Hello, I'm Jez Smith and welcome to idea number 12 from the book Humans Are Not Resources, 50 Great Ideas for Managing a Modern, Lean, Agile Workforce. Now this idea has a slightly controversial title, deliberately so. It's just called Stop Hiring Great People from Great Companies. And I imagine you kind of hear that and go, what a ridiculous idea. Of course we want to hire great people and we want to hire the best talent we possibly can. We want to poach people from the really successful companies out there because they will have the best people. We want the best people from the best companies, surely. And I think kind of yes and no. Yes, obviously you want great talent, you want great experience and so forth. But very often to say we want to hire great people from great companies is to miss a really, really fundamental point about the nature of companies. Because quite often people, go out there to hire people or poach people from the great companies of today, the great Silicon Valley companies. I shan't name any names, but the household names when it comes to the internet and digital and technology and so forth. Multi-billion-pound companies that have been hugely successful and so forth. We want to poach those people, offer them hugely attractive packages to get them into our organisation and sprinkle the magic dust that they clearly have over our organisation, just like they have over their great organisations they've come from and so forth. And in a way that's fine, but what very often is missed in that is that your company, your organisation and these great companies of today are actually very, very different things. One of the fascinating things and sort of phenomenon of these modern great companies is just how young they are, how new they are. 10, 15 years ago, some of them didn't even exist, hadn't even been thought of, and they sprung up from nowhere to multi-billion pound companies or multi-billion dollar companies, kind of from nowhere. And your organisation very likely hasn't. Your organisation might have been around much longer, might have been around decades, potentially even 100 years, 200 years, something like that. So these new organisations don't have some of the things that your organisation has. Your organisation likely has legacy mainframe systems, legacy databases, legacy code bases, legacy cultures, legacy processes, legacy people, things that have taken an awful long time to build up and to get the way they have. And these new great organisations haven't had that. They've started from scratch. They could design an organisation, not perfectly, but they could design a great organisation that scales without dealing with any legacy issues and cultures and behaviours and people that they had, because they just didn't have them when they started. They could start from nowhere. One really common thing you see in the Agile community is the Spotify model, for example. Spotify were founded as the music streaming service in 2008 and are now a kind of multi-billion-dollar company. And people kind of look at how Spotify run their organisation and, because Spotify codified a lot of it and put it on the internet at one point. And people say, great, we should copy the Spotify model because Spotify is successful, so we'll copy the Spotify model. But they forget that the clue is in the name. It's the Spotify model because it works in Spotify. It will not necessarily work in your organisation because your organisation isn't Spotify. It has different people, cultures, behaviours, processes, regulations, all of that sort of stuff. You can't lift and shift one model from one organisation and drop it into another one and expect it to do exactly the same thing. And I think that's true of people as well. You can't lift and shift someone from a great tech startup and drop them in a very old legacy organisation and expect them to know what to do, because they haven't ever had to deal with big legacy organisation issues. To take a slightly random example that occurred to me at one point, the band Metallica, who I used to be a bit of a fan of back in the day, in 2002 they were looking for a new bassist. And when they were looking for a new bassist, a new bass player, did they go around country and western fairs? Did they go to folk music evenings looking for a bass player? No, they didn't. They're Metallica. They're a loud, thrash, heavy metal band. They went out and they found themselves Robert Trujillo, who was the bassist for Ozzy Osbourne out of Black Sabbath fame. So yeah, they found themselves a thrash heavy metal bassist because, he understood what it was like to play bass in a band like Metallica. He didn't come from a completely different context. And this is what I think organisations are very often missing. They're saying that, someone's a great bass player, let's get them, when actually they're not a great bass player for the sort of band we are, for the sort of organisation we are. Just because they were successful in a young tech startup doesn't mean they're going to be successful in an organisation with legacy processes and years and years and years of culture and behaviour and regulation and all that sort of stuff built up. So the experiment I would like you to try is to start to think of this more, rather than just looking at someone's successes when you're hiring them and say that person's been hugely successful in that company, therefore we should grab them. Start looking at the context as well of their achievements. Have they achieved things in legacy environments? Have they achieved things to change things towards a more kind of tech-savvy startup mentality from a very, very low starting point? Or have they only ever worked with that kind of exciting, innovative tech startup mentality in a genuine tech startup that doesn't have all those legacy issues to deal with? Because I think it's unfair on the people you hire to bring them into an organisation and then have them sit there thoroughly confused as to what on earth is going on in this weird legacy organisation they've never experienced before. And it's a bit of a waste from the organisation's point of view as well, spending lots and lots of money on people who might not really understand their context, because context matters too. The type of organisation you are matters as much as the type of people you're trying to bring in. So start to balance those things out. Start to have an honest conversation with people about what really is it that it would be, what would it really be to succeed in our organisation at changing our organisation? You don't want to hire the people you've always hired, because then your organisation will stay the same. Equally, you don't want to hire completely different people who have no experience of your type of organisation at all, because they likely won't make any impact. You need to find the balance between the two. That's the experiment and the thought process I'd recommend you start exploring. So, I hope you've enjoyed that video. If you have, feel free to click the like button, that would be lovely. If you've got any comments or thoughts, I would love to hear them. Do feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you really enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe to this channel. There are plenty more videos like this.